Health officials believe COVID-19 originated in animals sold in a so-called wet market in China.
The Chinese food markets that sell live exotic animals have been blamed for spawning two deadly coronaviruses, SARS in 2002 and now COVID-19.
Authorities in Wuhan have ordered a local seafood market with apparent connections to the outbreak to shut down.
The Chinese government has banned the trade and consumption of wild animals for food.
It boggles my mind how when we have so many diseases that emanate out of that unusual human-animal interface that we don't just shut it down.
Hello, Professor Lee. Thank you so much for your time.
Good to be here.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I think, firstly, it's important to dispel some misconceptions about what wet markets are, because not all wet markets sell wildlife, and wet markets can be found not only all around Asia, but indeed the world. So what is a wet market?
I think it's absolutely crucial that we understand these terms and that we don't conflate wet markets and wildlife markets. These places sell fresh produce, often fresh meat. A minority of these kind of markets do also sell live animals and wildlife, but it's certainly not the majority.
If you go to a regular market, you normally don't see a wet market for live wild animals, but you may see a wet market for livestock. Wet market is a place where you can pick a live animal and have it slaughtered for you for warm meat.
If you could offer three things learned from this whole experience, from this outbreak, what would they be in relation to wet markets and wildlife trade?
I would say all wildlife trade must be shut down, not just the wet market. Wet market is just one piece of the entire wildlife animal farming industry.
I think the key lesson that we've learned here in terms of the risk of new diseases emerging from close contact with wildlife and from the destruction of wildlife habitat is that we can't have these short-term shifts in policy and then go back to normal. We're facing a situation of overlapping and interlaced crises.
Now, second, wherever you have large number of animals put in concentrated feeding operation, you have the problem. You're not only wildlife wet market should be shut down, the regular wet market should also be shut down in the interest of 1.4 billion people's safety.
But what about the cultural importance and everything else attached to that?
I never accept a cultural argument. The traders who always say, oh, this is our tradition, like dog meat traders, wildlife traders, that's just a force. I can tell you this, we went into a 200 Chinese household recently and to open the refrigerator, we did not find a frozen snake in the refrigerator.
There's not likely to be a one-size-fits-all policy that would be appropriate or that would be successful around the world. So these things do need to be tailored to the species, the location, and developed with communities and the people who are going to be impacted by it.
And number three, pandemic or epidemic can happen anywhere. It's not, country specific. It's not cultural specific. So we should not have the complacency to believe that this is just a Chinese problem. It's a global problem.
There should be a global shift towards prioritizing biodiversity. We knew this before this pandemic. We knew that these crises needed the highest level of political attention. So this serves as a reminder that unless we change how we're responding to the natural world and live more sustainably, we are going to pay the price.